Have you ever felt paralyzed by the fear of failing? Like every step forward felt like a step into the unknown. In today's video, I'm going to take you on a personal journey, sharing how I confronted and overcame my deepest fear, the fear of failure. It wasn't easy, but it's possible. And if you've ever been in a similar situation, then this story is for you. Let's dive right in. For the longest time, I was crippled by the fear of failing. Whether it was in my career, personal projects, or even the simplest tasks, I constantly carried a weight on my chest. Every decision, no matter how small, seemed like a high-stakes gamble, and the idea of falling short paralyzed me. It's like I was playing a game where the rules didn't allow for mistakes, but that wasn't reality. That was my own perception. The fear was most glaring when I had the opportunity to step into a leadership role at work. On paper, I had everything needed to take on the responsibility, but in my mind, it was a different story. What if I make a mistake? What if I can't handle the pressure? What if I'm just not good enough? These questions circled my mind like vultures, and rather than push forward, I shrank back, rejecting the opportunity altogether. My fear of failing had become my invisible prison. That fear didn't just stay confined to my work, it bled into every part of my life. I avoided personal challenges, abandoned hobbies I once loved, and withdrew from relationships out of fear that I would somehow mess them up too. I became my own worst critic, always expecting the worst possible outcome in everything I did. This self-imposed prison took a toll on my mental health, leaving me constantly anxious, frustrated, and feeling trapped. The fear was a burden I carried everywhere, weighing me down in ways I couldn't even fully recognize until one day I hit a breaking point. It became clear that I wasn't avoiding failure by staying in my comfort zone. I was failing by default. Something had to change, and it had to start with me. The fear of failure can have a ripple effect on your entire life, and I was no exception. It crept into every decision I made, leading to procrastination, avoidance of challenges, and the outright rejection of opportunities that came my way. My anxiety became a constant companion, keeping me from chasing dreams that once seemed so achievable. I was paralyzed by the what-ifs, and the frustration that followed each missed opportunity became unbearable. What started as a protective mechanism to avoid failure turned into a blockade that kept me from growing and reaching my potential. This fear became the root cause of every unfulfilled goal, and I could see it pulling me deeper into a cycle of inaction and regret. I remember vividly those low points, missing out on promotions, feeling stagnant in my career for years, and worst of all, watching others thrive while I remained stuck. The frustration of starting new ventures, only to abandon them halfway, became a pattern. I convinced myself that if I couldn't do something perfectly, it wasn't worth doing at all. Living in a constant state of what could have been, rather than embracing what can be, drained my confidence and motivation. But then came a turning point. After turning down yet another opportunity out of fear, I hit an emotional rock bottom. It was in that moment of clarity that I realized something vital. I was failing anyway, even without trying. Fear wasn't protecting me from failure, it was ensuring it. This was the wake-up call I needed to understand that change was not only necessary, but absolutely possible. So how did I break free from this cycle? It wasn't an overnight fix, but I made gradual changes that shifted both my mindset and behavior. The first, and perhaps the most important step, was recognizing that failure isn't final. It's simply feedback. I began to see failure as an opportunity to learn, rather than as a dead end. Each setback came with its own lessons, and instead of being scared of these moments, I started to welcome them. This shift in perspective allowed me to see challenges as stepping stones towards success, rather than obstacles to avoid. Learning to embrace failure was a turning point, because it took the fear out of trying. Next, I implemented small, actionable habits that helped me face my fears in a manageable way. One of the most effective techniques I used was setting micro goals, large, daunting tasks used to overwhelm me, leading to procrastination and avoidance. But by breaking down those tasks into smaller, bite-sized milestones, I was able to achieve small wins that built momentum over time. These micro goals helped me realize that progress, no matter how small, was still progress. Each time I achieved one of these goals, my confidence grew, and I started to believe more in my ability to handle bigger challenges. Another key element of my journey was learning to practice self-compassion. Before, I was incredibly hard on myself whenever things didn't go as planned. I'd beat myself up over even the smallest mistakes, which only reinforced my fear of failure. But once I started treating myself with the same kindness and understanding that I would offer a friend, everything changed. I realized that mistakes are a natural part of growth, and by forgiving myself for my imperfections, I became more resilient. This shift in how I treated myself helped me recover quicker from setbacks and kept me moving forward instead of getting stuck in self-criticism. Along the way, I also recognized the importance of having a supportive community around me. I sought out mentors, friends, and colleagues who encouraged me to take risks and reminded me that failure was part of the journey. Their encouragement, advice, and constant support made a world of difference, especially during those moments when I doubted myself. Surrounding myself with people who believed in me, even when I didn't, helped me stay motivated and committed to my self-improvement goals. It was through their guidance that I learned to push through the tough times instead of retreating. Finally, I learned that real growth comes from stepping outside of your comfort zone. I challenged myself to take on tasks that scared me, and each time I did, I realized that fear had less of a hold on me than I thought. The more I pushed myself, the more I grew. And in the end, the fear of failure that once held me back became the very thing that fueled my success. The journey wasn't easy, but by changing my mindset, developing healthier habits, practicing self-compassion, and building a support network, I broke free from the cycle of fear and transformed my life. Now I no longer see failure as something to fear, but as a necessary part of success. Through this journey, I've learned some powerful lessons. First, failure is not the enemy. Fear of failure is. Once I shifted my mindset and embraced failure as a part of the process, everything began to change. I realized that failure wasn't a signal to stop, but rather a signal to learn and adapt. By accepting failure as inevitable on the path to success, I freed myself from the paralysis that fear had caused. This mental shift allowed me to experiment more freely and take calculated risks, understanding that failure would bring me closer to my goals, not further away. Second, I learned that the road to success is paved with mistakes. No one gets it right on the first try, and holding yourself to an impossible standard of perfection will only lead to frustration and stagnation. Mistakes are how we grow. Each one is a lesson in disguise, offering insights into what didn't work and how to do better next time. Persistence, rather than perfection, is the key to progress. By focusing on improvement rather than perfection, I was able to keep moving forward, even when things didn't go as planned. An unexpected benefit of overcoming my fear of failure was the positive impact it had on my relationships. As I became more comfortable with making mistakes and learning from them, I also became more accepting of others' flaws. I was more willing to take emotional risks, like opening up to people or forgiving their imperfections. This shift helped me develop deeper, more authentic connections with the people around me, as I was no longer held back by the fear of being judged or rejected. It also strengthened my emotional resilience, allowing me to handle conflicts and challenges in relationships with more grace and understanding. Finally, once I stopped fearing failure, I found myself moving forward in ways I never thought possible. My career began to flourish because I was no longer afraid to take on challenging projects or pursue leadership roles. Personal goals that once seemed out of reach suddenly felt achievable as I approached them with a newfound confidence and belief in my ability to overcome obstacles. Most importantly, I rediscovered my self-confidence. No longer weighed down by fear, I felt empowered to pursue my dreams and take control of my life, knowing that even if I failed, I would learn, grow, and come back stronger. Now that I've shared my story, I challenge you to confront your own fears. Take a moment to reflect on what's holding you back, whether it's fear of failure, self-doubt, or something else entirely. It's easy to stay in your comfort zone, but real growth happens when you push yourself beyond it. This week, I encourage you to take one small action that scares you, even if it feels uncomfortable. It could be starting a new project, asking for feedback, or making a decision you've been delaying. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Remember, each step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward overcoming that fear and unlocking your potential. In the comments, I'd love to hear your experiences. What fears have you faced, and how have they impacted your journey? Have you taken steps to confront them, or are you still navigating the challenges? Let's create a supportive community where we can share our stories, encourage one another, and grow together. By opening up and lifting each other up, we can transform not just ourselves, but also the lives of those around us. So don't hesitate. Let's tackle our fears head-on and make meaningful strides toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps me continue creating content like this.